Good morning, church family and friends. We are in the month of September, first Sunday in the fall quarter. We've already started our first lesson in our midweek quarter about how to defend our faith. Especially when you're trying to share it with someone, and sometimes you are called upon to make a defense of that faith. Good morning to everyone who's watching on Zoom and also on YouTube. We will be studying several lessons with regard to the call of Isaiah as a prophet and his particular ministry. Also, later on in the quarter, we will look at Jeremiah and the promise of renewal. And then we will finish up with Ezekiel and the exile of Judah into Babylon, where they spent about 70-odd years before several of them, not all of them returned, but there were 3 waves that came back during the days of Ezra and Nehemiah. Isaiah's call and ministry. Just some facts to look at. He was the son of Amos with a Z. He is called the Dean of the Prophets, the Paul of the Old Testament. He was very much an evangelism type of prophet. And so he had a gospel, a message to share. He is also the messianic prophet. We go to Isaiah a lot for that. It was written to Judah and to Jerusalem, written about 740 to 700 BC. Isaiah comes into the picture 200 years after the split up of United Kingdom of Israel, with Rehoboam being in Judah. He is the first king of the split kingdom. 2 tribes make up what Judah is, that is Judah and Benjamin. Then we have the other 10 tribes in the north, and after a period of time they sort of disappear. We call them the lost tribes of Israel. His mission and his message was all about salvation. Salvation. The word happens to be found in, depending on the translation you're using, 28 times in Isaiah, 9 times in other prophetic books. Isaiah's name himself means salvation is of God or of the Lord. A little fact here, Isaiah is kind of like a miniature Bible. What do I mean by that? The Bible is made up of 66 books. There are 66 chapters. I'm not sure whether this is by divine design or by someone coming up with this themselves, or whether it was by coincidence. There are 2 main divisions, the first 39 chapters and the last 27 chapters. God's judgment on an immoral and idolatrous man, man's condemnation. The last 27 chapters deals with talking about the grace of God and the message of hope in the promise of a Redeemer to save the people. So Isaiah referenced in the New Testament is mentioned 43 times, second only to the Psalms. So it's your call and his. There seems to be two types of calls that come from God. Do you know what they are? Anyone? Well, the first type is a general call. Like God is calling everyone to obey, calling everyone to serve him, calling everyone to live a righteous life before him. These are the thoughts, the actions, the attitudes that God would expect from every believer, for every person who says, I am for God. The second type is what we might designate as a specific call. A sense call to a particular or a specialized ministry. This is where Isaiah comes in. And we actually don't get to read about his call. You know, in the book of Jeremiah, the call is right there in the first chapter. But with Isaiah, we have to go through 5 chapters before we get to the 6th chapter, and that is the call of God specifically to this man. Isaiah was associated with the royal family of God in Judah. His father, was brother to King Uzziah. And so that would have made the king Isaiah's uncle. So today's lesson will examine the details of a call that is unmistakably from God. Abraham had an unusual call. Moses, in particular, had an unusual call. His call came at the burning bush. And then later on, the call comes to people like Jeremiah. Jeremiah is a very young man. He says, I'm just a kid compared to others. Then with Isaiah, he raises the excuse that I am a man of unclean lips. I feel so unworthy to accept this call. And God, in Jeremiah's case and in Isaiah's case, has a solution. Same with Moses. Remember when Moses was called to go talk to Pharaoh, and he developed a stammer. His speech was not as clear. And so God said, okay, Aaron, you're up next. So Aaron became the spokesperson for Moses, while all the time God was wanting Moses to hear and obey the call, which he does later on. So imagine you're lost in a dark cave somewhere without a companion, a weapon, a light, and you hear a rumbling noise in the cave. The sound starts to grow louder and louder and seems to be coming in your direction. What would you do next? Anyone? Run and hide. All right. Or maybe you're a curious type. Oh, I want to go meet this. It could have been a bear. You open your mailbox. Let's go to the 21st century. You're part of the Mountain View Church or the Mill Street congregation there. We have Eddie and Linda Courier, and they go to church with Sharon and Larry. So fantastic. Welcome. We lived in Missouri for 23 years. I married a young woman from St. Louis, Missouri. So You open your mailbox and you discover an envelope containing a cashier's check written out for $10,000. The check is made out to you, but there's no personal information regarding the source of the check. So what would you do next? Cashier's check, your name's on it. There's an amount that says $10,000. What would you do? Deposit it? Cash it? Tear it up? You know, it's not from the Publishers Clearinghouse. There would be different responses, wouldn't there? There would be skepticism. There would be, well, boy, it looks like the real deal, but you need to know where is it coming from. So let's go to our lesson context. Isaiah began his prophetic ministry some 200 years after the nation of Israel divided into two. That happened around, give or take, 932 or 931 BC. We have then a north and a south kingdom. Isaiah's ministry is focused on the southern kingdom of Judah, even though he did prophesy against some kings of the northern kingdom as well. So the people of Judah have become, well, a sinful nation, and being openly rebellious against the Lord. If you look there in Isaiah chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, you get a sense of that. Such was the era that Isaiah found himself in when his call came about from God. So, the day the kingdom of Israel broke up, two guys, a king's son, Rehoboam, and a servant, Jeroboam. Do you know your Rehoboam from your Jeroboam? So Rehoboam, son of Solomon, Jeroboam, son of Nebat. Rehoboam, tribe of Judah, Jeroboam, an Ephraimite. Rehoboam, king of united Israel, that is, he would have been king of united Israel until the breakup. Jeroboam, according to 1 Kings 11 and 26, he is a rebel. And then Rehoboam rejected the advice of the elders. He consulted with the elders, and he also rejected that. Jeroboam became the spokesman for the 10 tribes of the king, for the king of Israel, the northern kingdom. Two cultic worship centers were placed in the northern kingdom, one in the north called Dan, and the other one in the south called Bethel. And this is an attempt to stop anyone from the northern kingdom from saying, I don't have a place to worship. I want to go down to Jerusalem. And probably that would have been discouraged, because that would have meant more and more people would be coming down into the south.
The sad part is that God had promised Jeroboam, if you follow my will, obey me and everything, I'll make a dynasty for you like I did for David.
Yes, but that didn't work out, did it?
He didn't follow him.
So here is a map. Oh, lost the picture. There it goes. The divided kingdom. Israel's kingdom is now sort of a compact. That's Judah. And then above that, above Jerusalem, we have the northern kingdom of Israel. Okay, here's another little map that will show you where the worship centers are. Jerusalem, and then of course there's Dan in the north, And then if you look just below Shiloh is another worship center set up by the northern kingdom in Bethel. On your handout today, there are all the kings, good and bad, from Judah and from Israel. I dare you to find me any good king in Israel in the northern kingdom. There aren't any. And not everybody is bad in the Judah, the southern kingdom, but there's about, half a dozen who are good. I think there is one that is exceptional, and then all the others are not very good or bad. So there you have it. You will have these handouts today, and then you can look there on Israel, bad, 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 extra bad, worst of all, bad, bad. You get the idea. And then the kings of the southern kingdom, mostly bad, good, 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 bad, bad, devilish. Mostly good, 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 wicked, among the best, among the worst, among the worst, among the best, bad, wicked, and bad. I wouldn't have liked to have gone home with that kind of school report, would you? So, the prophets of Israel and Judah, we are talking about Israel. He would prophesy against the two kings during his lifetime as a prophet, as to Pekah and Hoshea, and then Uzzah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, and will include Manasseh too. So, okay, I've got too many slides. That's my problem. Okay, let's get into the text here. What Isaiah saw, verses 1 and 2, what he heard, what he sensed, what he felt, what he said, and what Isaiah received. So, in that year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. Sort of like what you might read about in the book of Revelation, what you might also see when we get to the study on Ezekiel. That may be mentioned about some of the visions that he saw during that time. And he went on, he says, and these seraphim were calling to one another, holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the sound of their voices, at the sound of their voices, the doorposts and the thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. Talk about a dramatic entrance. There you have it. And it's not theater here. This is what God wants Isaiah to see and to feel and to know. Woe is me, I cried. I'm ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. We're not talking about Uzziah, we're not talking about Hezekiah or any other earthly king. He's talking about God as the king. And then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in his hand. He didn't use tongs. I think Jeremiah's experience was he got the hot cold treatment with a pair of tongs touching his lips. He says, that was taken with the tongs from the altar, but now it's in his hand. And with it he touched my mouth and said, see, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away and your sin atoned for. And then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? You know, that's the same kind of us language that's used at the start of Genesis. When God uses the plural, the we, the royal we, who will go for us? And I said, here am I. Send me. So, let's just recap. Verses 1 and 2. What did he see? What was he meant to see? Whether it's real time or where is it a vision? I don't think it's a vision. This is a real experience by this man, Isaiah, who has never been a prophet ever. Verses 1 and 2, let's go back to that. I saw the Lord, the King, high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the whole temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. By the way, the seraphim, they stand guard, they cover God on his throne in the book of Revelation. God did not use the seraphim in the Garden of Eden. What was used, a different word, is the cherubim. Now, when I was growing up, did you ever collect scraps? Colored papers, flowers, angels with cute little faces like this. Those were called cherubim, and we used to collect several sets, and then other angels, and we put them in a scrapbook. But the idea of a soft-spoken, cute as a baby's face of a cherubim is not what you see in the Garden of Eden. They block and guard the way for Adam and Eve or anyone else to come back to that place. So, what did he hear? He heard this. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. Wow. And what was he feeling? What was happening on the ground while this experience took place? It would become his special call by God, a specific call, wanting one person to do this. The ground shook. It also said the doorposts, the thresholds, and the temple was all filled with smoke. It was like an earthquake was happening. By the way, many times when you hear about God speaking, it sounds like rushing water, roaring, tumbling, trembling kind of water. It's basically to say that God does not have a squeaky voice. Who was the prophet in a cave who was hiding from Jezebel and Ahab? Who was it?
Elijah.
Yes. And was God in the fire? Was God in the wind? Was God in the earthquake? No. In this particular instance, this man, Elisha, is so fragile because of what Ahab and Jezebel were trying to do. He thought that he was the only prophet left in the country. And God says, hold on a minute. I have how many?
7,000.
7,000. By the way, sometimes when our faith is blinded, we do not see what is already there for us. We just need to trust God that even though we can't see it with physical eyes, we need to use our faith to walk and to act and to serve. And so he sensed all of that, and then he says, I've got dirty lips. He already kind of got, he said, I know what's coming next. Somebody's going to ask me to go.
Does that mean he had a potty mouth, or what does it mean?
No, I don't think he had a potty mouth, but I think he felt so absolutely unprepared, sinful. He felt like, I can't go. Woe is me, I am a man of unclean lips. Now that we are Christians, and the blood of Jesus Christ continues what? To cleanse us of our sin. A lot of times when somebody comes up, I've seen our elders do it, put the hand on your shoulder and say, I need you to do this. It's kind of like, in a way, God saying, who will go? Who will serve? And then when somebody, and you turn around and say, hey, Ralph, I'm sorry. I can't be a teacher. They'll eat me alive. I don't know enough Bible.
That actually happened where somebody asked one of our former education deacons, asked somebody to teach, and the person laughed and said, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel if you want me to teach.
Yes. Was that me?
No, it wasn't you.
It wasn't me. Well, I know it wasn't you. So anyway, sometimes we feel inadequate, don't we? Unprepared. But God sees something else. God knows something else. He did it with Moses. He did it with Jeremiah. He did it with Isaiah. He did it with Noah. So I'm a man of unclean lips. I'm totally unprepared. And what did he get? He got hot lips. That's what he got. Symbolically, you are now ready. The coal has taken your guilt away because it's holy fire. It's God connecting. Now, I haven't seen any of our elders or your ministers going around with a hot coal, trying to touch your lips. But let me do this. When you read God's word, there is fire in that word. When you read God's word, there is holiness for us. There is glory for God. There is work for us to do. There is glory to be given to God. Yes, Ed?
I think, too, it really helps us see that we all can be involved in something. I mean, we may feel inadequate, but that's where encouragement from others, getting us involved in something, will help us get into whatever ministry there is to be involved in.
Yes.
we have our talents to do. So I think it just says to us that we can't even though we feel inadequate, we can't just use that as an excuse not to be involved, because we're all part of the family. We're all involved anyway.
Yes. I saw a little sign, this latest mass shooting, a little card that came up, and it said, pray, but make your feet walk. In other words, go from prayer into action. God wasn't asking Isaiah, if you will, and I will use a 20th century song, strike a pose. To strike a pose it's like a statue. It depicts action, but is not doing anything. And sometimes as Christians, as believers, we opt for striking a pose rather than getting to work, going to serve, teaching that Bible class. You know, it's terrifying. You know, your first Bible class ever. Do you ever remember teaching a Bible class full of kids and they're asking all kinds of questions? You know, last week we talked about, on Wednesday night, it is that we are asked a lot of questions about the world, about the Bible, and then we feel so inadequate because we don't know where to go for the answer. It's right here. Read the Word daily, study the Word daily, and the answers will appear because they're all here. They're all here. So, he got the hot lips treatment, and from then on, he goes. And God says, just like he told Jeremiah, I'm sending you to a people that won't listen to a word you're going to say. And why go? Because God has commanded it. God has called on you to do it. And in that case, Jeremiah was to be the witness, not just God's mouthpiece, not just God's spokesperson. Same for Isaiah. Now, we've read the words here, and I'm going to, about the seraphim, I've got some questions. Oh, what were the seraphim? 6 wings. By the way, the cherubim are described in one case, they are full of eyes. The seraphim are almost similar to that. They have eyes. They can go in every kind of direction, a wheel within a wheel, if you will. Have you ever seen a mechanized seraphim? Well, read your book of Ezekiel. Here's the seraphim, just very quick. The seraphim stood around him, each having 6 wings. Seraphim are fire-like because the word comes from the Hebrew seraphim, meaning flames or flaming. It deals with, Psalm says, who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers flaming fires. Psalm 103 to verse 4. There's the cherubim, by the way, if you were, there's all kinds of designations. Some are just not in the Bible. The 2 I know that are in the Bible is seraphim and cherubim. If you're wanting to look up other references, they are outside of the Bible, so they're not part of the Bible. Sometimes we get our information at cross purposes by, don't go down the AI route. You can go to AI and you can ask a question. What are the seraphim? Don't rely on what AI is saying. Go to the book. AI is a wonderful invention, but it is not a panacea. So, God directed Moses to place a depiction of golden cherubim on top of the Ark of the Covenant. And the cherubim are described as having lots of eyes. So, digging down a little deeper, what does the covering of the seraphim reveal to you about posture in worship and prayer back then? The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silent before him. Posture. Well, I'm glad we do not have the idea of newflecting. Not with these knees. But let me tell you this, a lot of times when you read in the Bible, like David, he lies flat on the floor before God. Moses is told, take your shoes off because the ground in which you are now standing has become holy ground. When God occupies, come on, a space, a person, or a place, that becomes holy. So, how do physical, mental, and emotional postures affect the way you worship? When you come in this morning, have you thought about how you will worship God? The physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual part of it all? What is the purpose of the leader of worship, the song leader, if you will? Is it not to lead us in those thoughts? And sometimes we do it very well, and sometimes we do it very badly. Sometimes the way we sing songs, it makes it more like a funerary worship service than a celebratory one. So, for instance, lifting up holy hands to prayer. Where do you read about that? Paul wrote about it in one of his letters, about lifting up holy hands to prayer. I remember the first time in Kimberling City, Missouri, a man that we had baptized, his whole family, the Avonmard family, and he had come, I'm trying to remember his first name, Jeff. Jeff had come from Pentecostal background. Ralph, you'll understand this. And so, right in the middle of the singing service, before the sermon, before the communion, Jeff rises from his seat, goes to the wall back there in Kimberling, and starts to pray. So, elders are looking at me. Do something. So I stood up and I said, don't get excited. He's praying to God. And when he's done, he'll go back to his seat. And he did. But we say, hey, we don't do that in our place. We don't do that. I've seen people in various congregations. Some are more inclined when they're singing a song to raise their hand. If you're going to raise your hand, try them both, raising holy hands to prayer. But the thing is, we don't practice the holy kiss anymore. Now we give holy hugs or a pat on the back or not at all. Our posture mentally is important. Our physical presence is needed in worship. I mean, that's why we come together. Emotional postures, mental postures, physical postures. We're sitting in pews, for instance. Would it be different if it was in a circle? Or if we didn't have pews? We'd stand for the whole service? Well, I wouldn't stand for that, you might say. But the thing is, when we have a sense of being in God's presence, we should not judge others for doing something that they think is acceptable to God, as long as it is not disruptive. That's what I say. Put that down to 1 Gordon chapter 1, verse 6. Here's another one before the second bell. How do you describe the relationship between God's holiness and the holiness that God says his people are? As I am holy, you are holy. Now, when you got up this morning, did you feel extra holy? No, we have to be in a certain frame of mind, am I right? Where we're not worrying about, did I turn off the oven this morning? Did I leave something on? You know, what's that smell? And so on and so forth. We have to come prepared to worship God. We're not in a script. Our worship is not to be scripted as to make it look contrived, choreographed. So, how can you help others worship God for his holiness? Does what we do at the Lord's Supper, is it long enough? Is it too long? Are the sermons not long enough? Why are you laughing? Have you ever sung a hymn that just spiritually brought you to tears? Don't hold the tears back. As we say in Scotland, go ahead and have a good greet. Let the tears fall and let them be for God. So, when does the second bell happen? Right now. Just because Kevin here, everybody gets the idea that we have to run the clock. Let me just finish with these. In what ways can our corporate worship include, now watch it, a time for corporate confession? When somebody comes and prays, sometimes I've heard prayers that are basically a corporate confession. One person praying for all. God, be merciful to us, we who are sinners saved by grace. And the last, what would work in our corporate worship today? Why and why not? And I would have had some examples, but that will have to wait for another day. But I will leave you with this, James 5:16. Confess your faults one to another. And also remember that love always covers a multitude of sin. And we're not talking about just our love. I'm talking about He who loved us first. That love covers a multitude of sin. The lesson is yours. There's always never enough time for me.
I know. Too bad you didn't vote.
So this is, you can see where it goes. Her colors are really close